All right, sorry about that, guys. Oh, yay! Yes! Yay, we're working! I have never been so happy in my entire life. Well, so here's the great thing, guys. Before I realized it wasn't working, when I had hit start, the white light was flashing on the computer. I thought it was working. I talked about The Princess Bride for a good 15 minutes before I realized nobody could hear what I was saying. So, I probably will run a little bit past 5 tonight. If that is okay, let me know. If not, if you need to go do something else, I understand. And I am so sorry. I should have known that the first time I host one of these, there's going to be some sort of like technical glitch, technical issue. So let's see everybody's responses here. I see Miss Mandy. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Zach. Oh my goodness. Okay, I am so sorry about that. So some of you might remember me from our discussion on Cinder, which we had last summer. If you haven't met me, you don't know who I am, I'm Mandy, and apparently I can't use computers very well. All right, so today we are talking about The Princess. Whatever, life happens. Okay, before on The Princess Bride, there is on Edmodo under the Maze Runner tab, and it's all about your thoughts on the Maze Runner. So before we get started on Princess Bride, if you have any more thoughts you want to share, that question over on the Maze Runner tab. Did you like the book better? Did you like the movie better? Did you have any thoughts, any characters that were different from the movie or different from the book that you noticed? So we will go ahead and we will check out some of those answers that you had. We'll check them out a little bit later. All right, and then so one thing I want to announce is that at the end of the month, we are going to be having a movie showing at the Coeur d'Alene Library of The Princess Bride, which if you haven't seen it, it's so fantastic. It's so February 25th, that's a for the Maze Runner last weekend. So I hope to see just as many people there for The Princess Bride. Okay, so we can talk a little bit about The Princess Bride now. I can feel that I gave was so what I said when there was no audience around to watch me. You guys don't even know. It was like the most amazing Princess Bride discussion you've never heard. Okay, but I'll try to recreate it. So this says, it's The Princess Bride, S. Morgenstern's classic tale of true love and high adventure. Oh, isn't that sweet? So in the beginning of the book, we're discussing pages 29 through 120. But if you read a little bit before page 29, then you'll know that William Goldman claims that The Princess Bride is a book that his dad read to him when he was a kid. And whenever he was sick, his dad would come in and he would read that book to him. And it's really sweet. So my first question that I had posted a really long time ago, and you probably, if you scroll way, way down there, you can see that I said, what books do you remember your parents reading to you when you were little? Are there any special traditions your family has when someone is sick? Are there special books from your childhood? So those books, or even some of the books that we've read in Newfangled that you think you might remember later in life, any of those books that really have meant a lot to you growing up. And Megan said when she was little, her parents read her Narnia and Goodnight Moon. Zach says Green Eggs and Ham. So go ahead and add your responses to that as we talk about it. So like I said, yeah, William Goldman says, he has this book, The Princess Bride by S. Morgenstern, and his dad would read it to him all the time when he was a kid and he was sick. And I just want to tell you, that's a Morgenstern didn't write this book. S. Morgenstern never even existed. That's it's called a literary William Goldman. So William Goldman was born in the 30s, and this book was published in 1973. So he 40s when this book was published. No way his dad could have read it to him as a kid. And it even says in the earlier pages that he has one son, Goldman, any sons. He just had 2 daughters. So he not only treats Morgenstern like he's a real person and like the countries of Florin and Guilder are real, like he even claims his father is Florinese, migrated to the United States from Florin. No, and those countries aren't real, not a real thing. So this brings up the fact of the reliable narrator. So there's a thing in the book world called a reliable narrator or an unreliable narrator, which means you can't always trust what the author or the narrator are telling you. Sometimes it's just completely made up. And we think that we should trust those words on the page in front of us, don't we? But we can't always. So there are even 2 narrators in this book. There's S. Morgenstern, who's telling you this story of Princess Buttercup and Prince Humperdinck and Wesley. And then there's those comments, those italicized comments by Goldman. So, and those are kind of sarcastic a lot of the time. So that brings us to my second question. Can you or do you trust the narrators of The Princess Bride, or do you prefer one over the other, S. Morgenstern or William Goldman? And it looks like we have a couple of responses. Let's scroll down here. So Megan says she skipped through the italics parts. That's okay. That's fine. That's just William Goldman's comments in there telling like how he abridged it, how he shortened this book, which he did not. He's just using that as a device. He wrote every word on Zach, before, when I posted this question when nobody could see me, said he does trust the narrators and then put, whoops, about 4 seconds ago. So probably when I said that, it's a complete lie, that the author has lied to you. So that's just something to consider as you read this book and as you read other books. Sometimes the author sets up a narrator and this whole world of trust that you have, because it's a really trusting relationship between a writer and a reader. And that trust isn't always the best thing to have. So Sylvie responded, she said, likes S. Morgenstern's words. Yeah, she likes how he writes that. Do you like that kind of that fairy tale feel that he has, or kind of the history that he has in there? That's very interesting. Okay, perfect. So one cool fact that I found, and this is going to be a really fancy word, is the Bildungsroman. So that is a book where it talks about how somebody grows up. So like Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn, they're Bildungsroman. So Bildungsroman, they talk about how these boys grow up and they learn about the world. They think that maybe where William Goldman got the name S. Morgenstern is Johann Carl Simon Morgenstern, who came up with the term Bildungsroman. So a book about growing up. So a little bit about how William Goldman grew up. He was born in Chicago on August 12th, 1931. He won 2 Academy Awards because in addition to being an author, he was also a screenwriter. So he was born in Chicago. He went to college. He joined the Army then, and he even worked in the Pentagon, which is super cool. And then he went back to college and got a master's degree. But all this time, he kept trying to write. He would write at night, he would write in the morning, all these different times. And he got rejected over and over and over again. And he even took writing classes and got terrible, terrible grades. Who went on to be an Academy Award-winning screenwriter. He wrote Broadway plays. He wrote novels that won awards that are considered classics. He got horrible grades in writing, and he got rejected over and over again. But then he wrote his very first novel, and he wrote it in just a few weeks. He wrote this whole book in like 3 weeks, and it got published like that. And he went on to write 5 novels total, Oscar award-winning screenplays, and Broadway musicals. And none of that at all would have happened if he had given up after those first few rejections or those first few bad grades. So that's to my next question, which is, a lot of famous authors struggled with writing and rejection. So even J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter got rejected over and over and over again. So a lot of famous authors struggled with writing and rejection. If they had given up and quit, they never would have changed the world with their stories. Is there an instance in your life where you wanted to quit, but instead you kept trying and succeeded? All right, and it looks like also we have a few more responses to our earlier comment. So Shelby says she likes that S. Morgenstern gets to the point and doesn't dilly-dally. And I love that comment too. And we're actually going to talk about that. I think it might be the next point of that, because that's actually, Shelby, that's a fantastic point, because that is one of the points that your observation there that William Goldman was trying to make with this book. So even though this book seems like really fun and like a really funny take on the fairy tale, it actually had points he was trying to make. Zach says that he has a great way with words. And Shelby says it's annoying to have the italics, and Megan says totally. It is. Some people really, there's a whole debate among authors about things like this, about writing prologues, so that chunk that comes before the novel starts, or the epilogue, that chunk that comes after it, because readers find them super annoying. They don't like taking the time out from that story to so that actually, that's a fantastic point. All right, so to our next little bit. All right. Oh, here's another fun fact. So the countries florin and guilder. Florin is an Italian gold coin minted in, and then the guilder was originally a Dutch gold coin. So it was used in the Netherlands, and a florin was used in Florence in Italy. So that's where the names of the two countries come from. They come from currencies. So let's see. And Zach says that to come back to this wanting to quit. Zach says when he was doing free writing in LA, he wanted to quit, but it looks like he probably kept going. Yeah, excellent. All right, so Shelby says she likes that he gets to the point and doesn't dilly-dally with S. Morgenstern. So that's actually one of the themes of The Princess Bride, is that William Goldman wanted people, his goal in this is to not take literature too seriously. So he takes this theme with all this history, and a lot of it, the made-up history, because it's when Paris existed but Europe did not, but it was after America. So none of these things are actually happened in that order. But it's not taking literature too seriously and making it your own. So Shelby, by liking that he doesn't dilly-dally, that is, you're making it your own. You have your own interpretation of it. And then also, so how we know Goldman is doing that is because he makes himself part of the story. He relates it as he heard it. Even though he never heard it as a kid, he's really inserting himself into the story. And because he's free to insert himself and his own interpretation of the story right directly into it, it encourages the reader for you to make the book your own. Like when that scene when Buttercup has fallen in and she's swimming with those sharks, and the father interrupts and he's like, but she doesn't get eaten right now. And the kid's like, what? And he's like, I just want to know. I just want you to know, you look a little worried. She doesn't get eaten right now. He is really like, that's unheard of in a story. Authors usually like to build that tension, climb and climb, and then he totally does away with that. He does away with that convention of what's called rising tension. So he inserts himself in. Or like on page 94, Goldman says that S. Morgenstern had originally written like 105 pages and nothing happened in them except for the line, with one thing or another, 3 years passed. So he's really taking this whole fairy tale story and flipping it on its head and just making it a lot of fun and telling the reader, hey, even when it's a super serious work of fiction, you don't have to take it seriously. And also by Goldman taking what happened in his childhood and bringing it into the book, he's kind of making the point that a reader brings their whole life to a book. That's his claim. A reader brings their whole life to a book. So that's my next question for you guys is, and I will bring it on over here to Edmodo. So my question for you, does a reader bring to it? Can a book's meaning or even their thoughts about the plot change from person to person? Or do you think a book, is it like written in stone? A book can only ever be what the author wrote and what the author intended? Or like, if I read this book, am I going to get completely different things out of it than you would, because we've led two completely different lives? So I'm going to post that question, and let's scroll down and take a look and see Nicole said that she was doing an art project and kept messing up the measurements, but she finally got it right. And if you had quit, you would never project through to completion. And Shelby says that when she's snowboarding, she has a hard time getting everything down. When you get it right, your board gets too small and you need to get used to your next board. So just when you think you've got everything out and under control, the next challenge comes along. A lot like that. You think, oh man, I've finally got this whole life thing figured out. It's all smooth sailing from here. And what do you know? You'll need to figure out the next thing. And then, and it looks like Zach and Megan are having a really interesting chat about coming up with original ideas for stories, which, yeah, is one of the hardest things, to come up with original ideas for stories. All right, let's scroll down and see. We'll scroll down here. Zach wanted to know why Goldman did it, though, why he created that whole S. Morgenstern framework of the story. And part of it really is that, well, part of it was he had writer's block. I was reading this interview with him. He couldn't, so writer's block. He could not figure out what he was going to do. He wrote that whole chapter on Buttercup. And then he started to write the next chapter, The Prince, on Prince Humperdinck. And he just got like, I don't know what I'm going to write. Oh my gosh, I have writer's block. Which, like Zach said earlier, you have a hard time coming up with new ideas for stories. Well, that's what William Goldman had. He's like, man, I don't know what's going to happen with these people. But then all of a sudden, he had this idea of making it like a story within a story. So he created this whole S. Morgenstern thing, writing this book. And then that he came up with this whole thing, well, I changed it. I've just changed chunks of this larger story written by somebody else. So I can just basically go blah, 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 and then this happened. And blah, 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 blah happened. And he said, did that, the whole story opened up to him. The whole Princess Bride, it was like, the story was like this, and once he got that S. Morgenstern thing figured out, whoosh, it just opened right up. And really, the story kind of wrote itself for him because of that. All right, I see some new messages popping up, so let's take a look here while this loads. Okay, let's see if we got some new comments. Okay, perfect. All right, let's go back to our discussion. So on The Princess Bride, there are a few like motifs that are going on in the one of them is you can't ever figure out what the time is for this book. It's like might be Renaissance, it might not because it's after America but before Europe, which that doesn't happen. So, or like the scene where Florin and Gilda are having that disastrous dinner, and it goes from fantastic and lifelong peace at 8:23 to just, oh my gosh, brink of war at 8:25. And I really thought it was cool how he did like 8:23 and 10 seconds, and then at 8:23 and 20 seconds, because that it's kind of how life goes. But we don't really think of it that way. I mean, at like right now it is 5:03 and like 18 seconds. We don't think of things happening at those specific second increments, but they really do. So kind of playing with time is a motif that Goldman does in this book. All right. And one of my favorite facets of this book is how it just it takes this like picturesque storybook setting. So like Buttercup's farm, and it's very scenic. Or you've got this fairy tale, you've got boy meets girl and pirates and adventure, and it takes that traditional fairy tale and it totally like turns it on its head. And one of my favorite parts about that is Buttercup is disgusting. She is so gross. So even though she's like the 20th most beautiful woman in the world, and then most beautiful woman in the world once she starts taking baths, she's so gross. And normally in fairy tales, you know, the princess, she can sing to birds, and mice come in and they make her dresses, and she's very sweet and kind, and everything is just fairy tales and sunbeams and unicorns. But in The Princess Bride, if you read page 42, it describes Buttercup this way. She hated to wash her face. She loathed the area behind her ears. She was sick of combing her hair and did so as little as possible. Buttercup's just a mess, man. She's like, she doesn't like to take baths. She doesn't brush her hair. And then not only that, not like sting and like gross and dirty and germy and muddy all the time. And she smells like a horse. Like they say repeatedly, she smells like a horse because she's out riding her horse all the time. And then it says her horse's name is Horse because Buttercup was never long on imagination. So, and then we see later when Wesley is trying to like tell her that he loves her and she can't ever quite get it. So Buttercup, you know, she might be beautiful, but she's not like very clean. She's filthy and she doesn't have a lot of imagination and she's not like the cleverest person around. So I just think that is, I think that's a really funny way how he took, I mean, it's even called The Princess Bride. So, you know, she's the title character, but she's not your usual like Cinderella type princess going on. All right, it looks like we've got a couple new responses, so I'll check on over on Edmodo. So it looks like Megan had some questions about my most recent question. So basically, I just want to know, like, if you're reading with how much of a book does a reader bring to it? Can a book, like, change from person, or do you think a book can, like the author writes a book and the author has the exact thought of what that book should be and what it should mean, or do you think like I could read a book and get something completely different out of it, and like Megan could read a book and it would be something completely different? Like somebody might read this and think it's like a very serious book, and then I might read it and think it's really funny, because we have two different experiences in lives. So I just want to know, how much do you think a meaning of a book changes from person to person? And there's no right answer or wrong answer, really. It's just what you think changes from in a book. Ooh, I like this question by Megan here. What would you do if you were in Prince Humperdinck's position, and would you have reacted differently to the bald princess? That is really funny. And that also, one of my favorite lines in the book is when Prince Humperdinck is told, your father is dying. And his response to his father dying is, drat, I shall have to get married. Yeah, so that's great. Yeah, go ahead and respond to Megan's question because I really want to see the answers there. And I'll have to think on what I would do if I were in Prince Humperdinck's position and would I reacted differently to the bald princess. Yeah, not great diplomacy going on here in Florin, is there? All right, so so one of the symbols in the book, Zach would have been nice her out the door and then never see her again. Yes, that probably would have made the relationship between Florin and Gilder a little bit better, don't you think? Yeah, a little bit. It was really funny. All right. Oh, that's funny. Zach posted. Zach, you posted just my my next question here. I just saw a question pop up that said, "Who is your favorite character?" And that was actually my my next question, because one of the symbols of the book is it's called the use of the superior. Have you noticed that all of the characters are like the best at something? Vicini, he has the best wit, like he's really clever. Inigo is the best sword fighter. Buttercup is one of the most beautiful women in the world, and Humperdinck is an incredible hunter. Although he is, but like he has to create his own, like that zoo of death that he has. I don't know how great of a hunter he is if he has to create like his own whole underground hunting arena where he can kind of control the parameters of it, control what everything's like. So all of the characters are the best at something. Well, my next question is, which do you like best? Who do you like best? Which do you? Who would you want to be, or who do you think you're the most like? I'll tell you, I really love Vicini. I love Inigo too, and Fezzik. Okay, I guess I love all of them. I do. I love all of them. So let's see here. Let's see if we have some more responses. All right. So Megan says it changes on how a person thinks, like if a book's meaning changes from person to person. And I agree, it really does. Like, and also sometimes I swear a book can change from reading to reading. It depends on what mood I'm in when I'm reading a book. And there are times I am convinced I'll read a book one time and I'll remember it one way, and I go and read it another time and it might have a completely different ending. And so sometimes I think a book can even change depending on the mood of the reader. If you are in a really bad mood and you read a book, it's going to completely see that book. And then when you read it again, it's like completely different words on the page. So the writer can only go so far. They put those words on the page, but they can't control how we see it in our heads, because we're bringing a whole lifetime to reading that book. We picture the setting one way. We might picture the setting as a house we've been in sometime, where somebody else will picture it as a completely different house. Or if you've seen the movie The Princess Bride, before reading the book, which I did, you might picture the characters as the actors who played them, whereas somebody who hasn't seen the movie will make up brand new faces for those characters in their heads. So it really depends on how a person thinks, what they've seen, what they've experienced, and what kind of mood they're in. Probably should have phrased that question a little bit more clearly, so I'm sorry about that. And let's see if we have some more responses. And it looks like we might have a new response on the Maze Runner question, so I will hop on over there in our last few minutes. All right. Yeah, and Zach says a book can change how someone reads it from person to person. Absolutely. All right, let's hop on over to the Maze Runner. So Zach's comment is that the movie is actually similar to the book, unlike other movies originating from books. So Zach thought they were quite similar. Did anybody, if you want to share on that, did anybody notice, was a character different in the movie version than how you thought they would be from reading the book? Were they different on screen than they were in your imagination? So like maybe the filmmakers had a completely different interpretation of that book than you did. That would be interesting to find out. And let's see here. Oh, good. Everybody's commenting on that. Let's see. Okay, let's go back over on the Princess Bride here. So we have a couple replies. Megan likes Fezzik the most, and she would want to be the man in black. Oh, and Shelby likes Buttercup the best because she is true to herself and true to her world. I like that. And Shelby, you know what? Now I feel really bad. I feel really bad for the things I said about Buttercup not bathing. Because she's very honest. That is an excellent point, and one I didn't jot down to make, but Shelby brings up a really great point about Buttercup being true to herself and true to her world, because as soon as Buttercup realizes she loves Wesley, does she like get all shy and hide away and play coy? No, she runs straight to her door, or straight to his door. She runs straight to Wesley's door, and she blurts it all out. She confesses that she loves him. And then when he doesn't say anything, she's so upset that she runs smack into a tree, and then later does try to like, oh no, I was just joking. But she's true to herself. As soon as she realizes she has this once in a lifetime love that keeps growing from minute to minute. Like, that is a really great point. So it looks like, even though, let's see. Oh, and Megan says on the Maze Runner that Gally was, was different. Let's see, Megan here. Was different on screen than what you from the book. Okay. All right. So what kind of differences, if you want to share what differences, was the actor different looking than how you pictured, or like mannerisms or attitude, things like that? All right. You guys, thank you so much for your patience. I kept opening that Google screen and it just, for some reason, would not work. I'm going to claim technical difficulties, although I have a feeling it was all me, all this right here, just not using the computer right. So I am so grateful that you guys really hung in there for like the 10 to 15 minutes it took me to get this all set up. And thank you so much for telling me that it wasn't working, because you guys, I talked for 10 minutes straight and no one was there. I talked to myself for 10 minutes. So thank you for telling me that, because wouldn't it have been awful if I'd sat here for a half an hour, like not saying, like not talking to anybody? That would have been really terrible. So I appreciate all of your help. I hope that you got something out of this. I would love to chat with you guys again in the future, and I won't make like the computer mistakes that I did this time, I promise. I probably will all over again. So keep responding to those questions and to those posts. And then again, just a reminder, so next week, February 11th from 4:30 to 5, the discussion will be on The Princess Bride, and it will be pages 1 to 218. And then on the last meeting of the month, that is going to be in a few weeks. It will be on Thursday, February 25th. There will be a viewing of the movie The Princess Bride from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Coeur d'Alene Public Library. So again, that's Thursday, February 25th from 6 to 8:30. And we really hope to see you there. Oh, it looks like we had a couple quick responses in here that I'll kind of look at really quickly here. Shelby says bye. Bye, Shelby. Thank you so much for your great responses today. I really had a lot of fun chatting with you guys. So yeah, next week from 4:30 to 5, another chat, and then the movie showing on Thursday, February 25th from 6 to 8:30 at the Coeur d'Alene Public Library. All right, thank you so much for a wonderful afternoon. I really appreciate it, and I had a great time chatting with everybody. Bye.